hand over first of all then to Emma, if you're there, please.
Brilliant, and thank you ever so much for having me along this evening, and hello everybody. Each CILEX member has their own unique journey, and I love hearing everybody's stories. So I'll start mine by saying I had no ambition to be a lawyer, and if I'm honest, I didn't even know what I wanted to do when I was at school and college. What I knew that I wanted to do was to go to university, and I liked to travel. So I went to college and I did a BTEC GNVQ Advanced in Leisure and Tourism. Did a lot of traveling, went to the University of Sheffield and did a degree in tourism management, or my deck chair degree, as my husband refers to it as. But it was a fantastic degree, and there was lots of different elements to it. So there's economics, psychology, law. So there's the tenuous link into how I became a lawyer later in life, marketing, finance. So I did go to university, and I came out and I still didn't really have a clue what I wanted to be. And I got a job with Kellogg's as a territory manager. So in my early 20s, I was zooming up and down the motorway selling breakfast cereal. Turns out I'm not a big fan of sales, so a sales job wasn't for me. But actually, one of the things that I did at college was learn to touch type. So I was very quick at putting information in. I took a temp job for Reuters as a market analyst, inputting data into a system, and then got a substantive job as a market analyst for Reuters. And it was at that point, I was in my early 20s, and I thought, right, okay, I will requalify, I will do something to do with stocks and shares. So I was going to go down that route, and then I was made redundant. So I'm now in my mid-20s. I think, right, come on, pull it together now. What do you want to do in terms of a future career? And I thought back to those modules that I did at university, and it was a decision between psychology and law. So you can guess which route I decided to go down. But I didn't want to just leap into the next thing that came along. So I thought I would get a job as a legal secretary in a local law firm. And I have to admit, I got off to a bit of a shaky start with law, because I didn't know if my personality would fit in. And the first law firm I worked at, I didn't work there for very long, but I thought, right, well, I'll try another law firm. And it was then that I was working for a barrister who specialised in civil litigation and a solicitor who specialised in family law. And they were a fantastic team, and they were very supportive. And they knew from the outset that I wanted to go on, I wanted to requalify. And at that point, I was going to qualify to become a solicitor. So I was signed up with UE in Bristol. The firm said to me, we'll give you an interest-free loan. So there I was, legal secretary, signed up to become a solicitor. It was then, though, that the barrister said to me, oh, have you heard of CILEX, as it then was? And I'd never heard of it then. So I researched it. I thought, this is an absolute no-brainer for me. I've already been to university once. I've had the university experience. And this is a earn whilst you learn type of qualification. And once I went back to the practice manager, they said, oh no, if you want to do CILEX, we'll pay for it. So I appreciate I was in a completely privileged position to be given that opportunity, and my firm paid for me. And right from the outset, as well as giving me dictation, my barrister and solicitor were giving me tasks to do. So when I was listening to Matt speaking earlier, and he was saying about how you don't just hit the ground running once you qualify, you're doing the work. I was doing the work before I even started doing the qualification. So it was a fantastic experience. But the goal was always to still carry on and cross-qualify to become a solicitor. So when I took some of my level 6 subjects, I did criminal law and EU law, which isn't very handy now, but they were qualifications that I knew would exempt me from then some of the solicitor qualifications. So when my barrister colleague moved on to another firm, she took me with her, and I started running my own caseload with personal injury files. So that was my background in private practice. And then randomly in 2000, so I qualified, I was admitted as a fellow in 2010. In 2011, I randomly went for a job somewhere else. I think I had my CV on a website, and one day I was a bit frustrated. I had my CV private, but then I put it as public. And I was contacted by a recruitment company. He said, oh, do you fancy going to work for the Royal College of Nursing in-house? Didn't really have a clue what that was. And I actually thought I was going there to do personal injury, but turns out it was regulatory law. And so now, and for the past, coming up 12 years, I've been an in-house lawyer for the Royal College of Nursing, representing nurses, defending them before their regulator, doing work for defending them in relation to the DBS, inquests. And it's really exciting. So I've not worked in private practice for 12 years. There's no time recording, there's no billing. I'm not saying it doesn't come without its difficulties because there's a huge turnover of work, there's tight unexpected deadlines, so it's getting the balance, but also we get to do other quite random things as well. So you all know that the nurses are striking, 1 day of strike action this week and then next week, and the in-house legal team were involved in the wider RCN team when we went out to do the balloting back a couple months ago, going into the hospitals, leafleting, telling all the nurses about the strikes, and we get to do training, we train the activists, and it's really unique role. But the question, I guess, is why didn't I go on to cross qualify? Because right from the outset, even though I started learning with CILEX, the goal was still to cross qualify. But if I'm honest, by the point where I'd got to running my own caseload, I really found a great community within CILEX. Donna's on this call, and she was one of the founding members of the Devon branch with myself and some other local lawyers. And it was just realizing back then I didn't know that many different CILEX lawyers, and meeting Donna and then meeting other people, we were all new, we were wet behind the ears, we knew we wanted to do something locally, we didn't really know how a committee worked, but we formed something, we formed a great group, and over the years we grew, we put on different events, and we got to know more people in the local area, and also I grew in confidence a lot from taking that journey. It was also then that I got involved more with HQ. And when the Devon branch was launched in 2009, I got to know more people at HQ, and then come 2013, that's when I joined the old style CILEX Council. It completely pushed me out of my comfort zone. I walked into a room, I was the youngest, I don't know, I should watch it because Stephen's on the call as well, but I was the youngest, it was fair to say, Stephen, wasn't it, by a little way, and also there was a lot more men in that room, so to walk into that room was a massive deal, but it was a fantastic opportunity. And I served on that council for 3 years, but unfortunately it coincided with the time that I had my first child, and actually having to commute 5 hours to Bedford for council meetings, it was too much at the time. So I had to make the really difficult decision to leave CILEX Council. It was the right thing, but it was the wrong time. And then life carries on as it does in your career. I've stayed in the same place. I went on to have a second child. But also in 2020, I was approached by the then president and vice president, and they asked if I'd be interested in returning to what is now the professional board. So CILEX has gone for a governance review. And things had really changed for me. Like I say, I'd had my second child. I'd also just recovered from treatment for breast cancer. And I really had this new just go for it attitude. I'm one of these people who would rather regret something I've tried than regret something that I haven't. And I really felt that I had unfinished business. So I was co-opted back onto the board in 2020, secured a substantive role just last year. And then this year I pitched for vice president, because CILEX is something you can tell I'm very passionate about. I've been involved with the CILEX community for so many years. And that's how I've gone from a degree in tourism management through all various different roles actually, to now sitting here as vice president of CILEX and then coming on to president next year.
Thank you so much. Whistle stop tour, but so much that you've done, my goodness.